That's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Hello and welcome to episode 48 of PvA Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Luke Croft. Joining me, as always, freelance gaming journalist Cody Mellicline. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing really, really well. Also joining us, the Kobayashi of hot fries, ladies and gentlemen, Larry Hunt.
I know who that is, for sure.
Kobayashi is like really famous competitive eater, won the Nathan's hot dog eating contest for years. Now is Joey Chestnut, who's taken it for years and years in a row. I think he ate like 70 hot dogs on the 4th of July because that's what it's all about, baby.
It's such a gross thing to watch.
It really is.
I can't watch it. There's food flying everywhere. They're dunking it in water. It's not my bag. But if it's yours, more power to you. How are you, Larry?
This week has left me in a perpetual state of rage, but I'll set that aside for the next 2 hours.
All right, maybe we can talk about it in the
Let it
show.
feed you. Accept it.
You should have been on last week's episode then, Larry.
Yeah, really.
I think we're gonna have a lot more fun. This is a much more fun episode this week than we had last week.
Lighter episode, you might say.
French kiss, chef's kiss, not French kiss. French kiss is the one with the tongue.
I mean, I'm game if you are.
That's how you do it.
Oh man, why didn't you let me know that before you came to my house a couple weeks ago? All right, guys, this is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week, and each of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories of the week to the table. Then we have an in-depth discussion about it. Consider it your collaborative audio feature article, or CAFA, if you will. And Larry, since you just took a swig of Coke, I'm going to let Cody explain what we want people to do with that.
I want you to spam that emote, and then take a drive over to your best friend's house. Make sure they live at least 3 miles away. You want to make it worth it. Grab a pen while you're on the way. Just write on the upper arm. Just write CAFA over and over again.
Yes, that is exactly what we want you to do. We do this every week. Over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can catch us live, talk along with us in the chat. But if you can't catch us live, you can find us on youtube.com/PvA Radio or podcast services everywhere. Wherever you're listening to us, we appreciate it. Make sure you leave a like, thumbs up, comment, leave a review if you're listening on podcast services. It goes a really long way for us. But guys, let's start at the top with a little bit of housekeeping. Guys, the PvA Nightly Rundown is back in full force, and we are having a really great time. Last night, we had 8 items on the list. We got to 3 of them. So it's a lot of fun. That happens every weeknight, except for Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern time over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio. I'm also breaking that out on demand over on youtube.com/PvA Radio the next morning, so that if you miss it, you can get caught up. Also thinking about possibly dropping the audio into podcast feeds, but I'll try to get a little feedback from people who watch the show and may want to interact with it that way. But we'll see about that. Also, Larry is going to be out of town over the next couple weeks, so we're going to have some special guests rolling through here. Joining us next week, we are going to have Andrew Nimsgern from Project Esports, a show I've been on a couple times. Andrew was also on our pre and post show for E3, so he's going to come around and actually do his very first official regular episode of PvA Radio. And then the following week, we're going to be joined by a guy named Jarrett Wilson, who is a co-host of a weekly gaming podcast called the Team Chat Podcast. He's gonna join us. That's a show that if you're a fan of just games, and people who talk really passionately about games, you need to go check that show out, because I don't feel like I'm very good at talking about games, so I appreciate people who are. And they'll do topics like I think their last episode was like best last levels in any game. and they'll like rank their top 3 best last levels. So it's a lot more topical and less like chatting about gaming news, but still a great show. So he's going to be joining us week after next. You won't want to miss those. So I think my wife may be dying on the other side of this door. All right, guys, that does it for the housekeeping, though. Let's start this week off like we get every week started with, what have you been playing? Cody, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Apex, quite a bit of Apex. Still really enjoying that. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this game ad nauseum, but it's just still so fun. Like just the core of that. I refuse to buy season passes for most games, so I did not buy the season pass. So I only just bought.
That's not where it felt like that statement was going.
No. I still refuse to buy them, mostly just because I am poor. But I only recently unlocked Octane because I bought him with credits that I earned in game. So I'm having fun with him. He actually, he's a character I did not think would fit my play style, but I really love using him. I feel like I'm getting used to using the jump pad effectively at this point, but still fun. And I love I've played a couple times with my brother and some other friends who play with Watson, and she seems like a very we talked about this. I kind of talked about this last week, but she opens up a lot of very interesting possibilities, especially when you get into the late game and the circle gets smaller and smaller. So I've been playing that, a little toying around with Smash Brothers a little bit, and then some more Overcooked with my girlfriend, and we're still really enjoying that, and hopefully going to be making our way to the second Overcooked before long.
And you're still together, which says a lot when you play a competitive game or a cooperative game with somebody.
A cooperative competitive game, yeah. We've been managing.
Have you convinced her of the importance of getting 3 stars on every level?
No, that's a losing battle.
Win every battle.
It's a losing battle.
All right, Larry. I'm going to give you the floor here for a few minutes just to talk about Apex, since you weren't here last week, and you are our resident Apex expert. So,
the look in his eyes.
Apexpert, I believe, is
Correct.
what we're referring to you as.
That's what my doctorate says. Yes. Yeah. So this season pass, they've dramatically improved it, and this is the only game I've played this week. So to answer the question, what have you been playing? Just Apex. There is only Apex. I love the game, just the gameplay altogether. I'm with you on that, Cody. It's just a fun game. The update, I'm pleased with. I'm not super impressed with the skins. That's really the only thing that I'm really not thrilled with. But I love how much the map has changed.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love how much they've modified the gameplay with the new attachments and that kind of thing. The new character, of course, it's great. And at first, I thought I was going to dislike the way the battle pass works now, where you only level up by accomplishing the challenges. But now that I've had over a week to do that, this is actually super attainable if you just put some time into it. So I'm loving this, and the challenges have me hooked in a lot more than last season. Just I know every day there are 3 new things that I can try to do, or not, because I can progress without having to do everything every day. And the weeklies, I love that those hang around even if you don't get them all done in that week. So and it forces me to try different play styles. So I had never actually used the P2020 pistol outside of like maybe a couple times where I was forced to. And now that I've had to use it to accomplish some challenges, I actually like that weapon. So I appreciate the challenges, like forcing me out of my box and trying some different play styles. Sometimes I don't, but mostly I do.
All right. Awesome. I've also been playing Apex. I just suck at that game. I don't really have anything to really contribute to this except for the fact that if I make it into the last 10 squads, I feel pretty good about myself. So also just continuing learning about learning League and having a lot of fun with that, and also playing a ton of Arena of Valor. I mean, because it's the only game that matters, right? Despite the fact that it's probably going to not be supported here after the next couple months. So,
Larry, every year.
Larry, I know you've downloaded it. Don't spend a dime on it. Not that I thought you would, but just If you were thinking about it, don't, because Tencent is moving on to, they're actually going to be making the League of Legends mobile game, and so they're dropping support of Arena of Valor that came out just recently, which is also my topic. Let's move. I'm just kidding. So yeah, and I'm also I've been watching the Dota. I can't remember the tournament. So there's like a $25 million tournament that's about to take place, and all the qualifiers for that are happening internationally are going on right now. So I've just kind of kept it on in the background while I'm working, and I thought League was confusing. Holy shit, there's so much going on in Dota that I don't understand. But I said this last week, I've come to find out I just love esports. I love the production quality. I love the passion of like the casters and stuff. And so been watching a lot of Dota, a lot of NBA 2K, obviously Overwatch League and League as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing and interacting with in the gaming world. So let's jump into our topics. Larry, we're going to start with you. What'd you bring to the table for us this week?
So I don't know if this qualifies as one of the biggest gaming news stories of the week, but
when does it ever, Larry?
and connected to stuff from a decade ago. For me, I am super pumped because we are finally on the verge of the release of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. So I dropped a couple of videos into the notes, but I did drop them in kind of late. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch any of the gameplay or not. Did you get a chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I scrubbed through. I watched quite a bit of the Game Informer one, and then I realized what was happening with the other one that you sent me, and I was like, yeah, I ain't about to sit through this.
I watched all 15 minutes. So the other video I sent for those listening, it was a Smash Brothers style. Here's every character and every move they can do. So that was good. So yeah, I'm real pumped about this game, but just for context, have you guys played an Ultimate Alliance game? And if so, how do you feel about the franchise thus far?
I have not played a Marvel Ultimate Alliance game. I feel really good about the franchise.
Excellent. There we go. I think I played the first one.
Yeah.
I like them for what they are, which is just kind of very arcadey, great games to play with your friends, like in very short portions.
Yeah.
That's how I enjoy them, at least. I know a lot of people are very into them, and I'm sure people will be very into this one, especially because Marvel has kind of had a pretty good year so far, to say the least. But I enjoy them kind of how I enjoyed the old X-Men arcade game. I love playing it with people in the same room, just kind of mixing powers, hacking and slashing your way through enemies.
Yeah. So I played the first two back in college, which was those were great games to exist when I was in college, because you just get a couple of guys on the hall to come in, and that's exactly what it is. It feels like I'm back in the arcade when I'm a kid, like trying to beat one of the X-Men games. And for me, like that's a blast. It's like one of my favorite things in gaming is couch co-op. And I often lament that there's not enough of it. So those games were always really fun. And they can be as simple or as complex as you want. You can just go through, beat them up, or you can like try to master the combos and the team synergies that you can put together. You can try to put together the perfect squad, that kind of thing. And so I appreciate that about them. The hunt for new costumes, that sort of thing. So I guess my the direction I want to take the conversation is how do you think this game's going to do? Does it fit in this current landscape of gaming where couch co-op isn't really a big thing? And I'm also curious about how you feel about the decision to release this game so close to the Avengers game that's coming out soon. I felt like that was an interesting decision because these seem like very similar things to me.
Yeah, for me personally, I think that, to Cody's point about like the Avengers are really hot right now, like I think the time to have really maximized on this would have been around the same time that the movie came out, because I I look at this gameplay, and the gameplay doesn't blow me away. It's very, it's a beat 'em up style game. Like, it doesn't look like it's super challenging. It's got a Disney Infinity-esque art style to it, and I think in a lot of ways that works against it. People will look at that, and I think that they probably have they draw assumptions about how that game is going to play if they're not familiar with the Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And this is coming from a guy who has never played one of the games. So watching that, all I could think about was Disney Infinity and how watered down that gameplay was. And that may or may not be how it actually is, but just aesthetically, that's what it reminded me of. But I don't think that people are looking at this and going to compare it directly to the Avengers. And I don't think the Avengers game that, Crystal Dynamics is working on. But and so I don't necessarily think they would cannibalize each other in any kind of way. I really think they're kind of in two separate leagues from one another. But if I was Marvel Ultimate Alliance, I would have wanted to release this around much closer to Endgame to kind of piggyback off of that, because that's striking while the iron's hot.
Yeah, I think the way I see it is, what is the release date for this game?
I think it's the 15th or the 7th.
July.
Yeah. No.
Oh. Larry cut out. Are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you say July 15th?
It's July 19th.
Okay. Well, I guess sort of the way I saw it was I think of it more in terms of capitalizing on the Marvel brand as a whole, because Marvel will not have another movie release for quite a while, at least in terms of their time, the schedule they've kept up. We had Avengers, would have been great to launch alongside that, would have been great, did not. But we just recently had Spider-Man last week. This will be launching next week. I think capitalizing on Marvel as a brand is not a bad way to go. I also think, to me, the audience for this game is not necessarily us.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this is a game that will certainly appeal to a lot of kids, and especially a lot of siblings. I would have loved to play a game like this with my brothers. I think there will be people like us too who will just buy it, pick it up, play it for a few hours, and then just kind of put it down. And it'll just sit in your library of Switch games. But I don't know. I do agree with Luke in that I think, both in terms of when they're releasing and the kind of games they are, I don't think that it'll be kind of cannibalizing the market with the Avengers game. We still haven't even seen gameplay of the Avengers, and from what people have said, it plays a lot more. It's a much more polished AAA experience, whereas this is much more of an arcadey thing, and I think there's space for both of those. I do sort of wonder whether this kind of game has a place in the landscape at large, but I think probably for the budget that was put into this, for the time that was put into this, it'll probably make its money back just off the Marvel and Avengers name alone.
Mm-hmm. I think I was just at GameStop here recently, like earlier this evening, and I think that I saw the Marvel Ultimate Alliance stuff being advertised in the Switch section, which seems to make a lot of sense.
It does.
Isn't it an exclusive?
Is it exclusive?
I thought it was.
It's been marketed almost solely on Switch.
Hold on, I'll look it up. You give your thoughts, Larry.
Okay. So yeah, I've got a little bit. It's just strange to me. I get that they're sort of different games, but it just seems strange to me to release this and the Avengers game, and especially with the storyline they've given this, where you're pursuing the Infinity Stones, you're trying to get those before Thanos gets them. It's just in a lot of ways, this game is more connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe than the Avengers game, and it's just really strange to me, is all. But by the same token, you've got a lot of non-Avengers characters, and they've on the fact that a lot of people have been introduced to alternate spider people through Into the Spider-Verse. You've got the Defenders showing up, and that's going to be fun. But But I love the game. If you're into comics, if you're just a comic book nerd, like they are a blast. Just cheesy. You're gonna sit down and have some good comic book fun. But as far as the landscape, couch co-op's not a huge thing right now. But in spite of that, I think Switch is the way to go. Obviously, I could see firing this game up on a long van ride on one of my youth trips or whatever. I look forward to playing it with my family. I think this will be a fun like first game to sit down and play with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an idiot. This is being published by Nintendo, and the only announced release date currently is for the Switch. So I apologize. This is so like this game is not even remotely on my radar. So
yeah, and I feel like that's probably true for a lot of people. As excited as I am for this game, I think it is just going to be a really niche thing. So yeah,
It has been getting a surprising. I don't know. It seems like it's got a pretty, probably because Nintendo's behind it, a pretty big marketing push. Like it was on the cover of Game Informer a few months ago. It was a big. The trailer was a kind of a highlight at one of the shows recently. Maybe I don't. It wasn't. I don't think it was E3. It might have been the Game Awards or something. But it's been highlighted several times. They're putting some money behind it, which is, I mean, indicative of maybe how much attention they think it needs. But I don't know. It seems like it might do better than a lot of people are assuming. And I do think it's also funny, like you said, that it is in some ways much more connected to the existing MCU as we know it. But that might be to a detriment considering that story is over at this point. We've seen that story and play out in the MCU.
That's true. This is a side point, not really important at all, but in the gameplay, I really love that Rocket and Groot are like one character.
Yeah.
That I found that very satisfying. So yeah, I don't know. I just for me, this is like the most exciting thing coming up, and I know that's probably not true for most people, but I can't wait to get my hands on this game. It's going to be the first time I buy a game on day one in a really long time, I think.
Oh, wow. I've known Larry for years, Cody. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. Larry is not a first day. He's not a release date purchaser.
Well, I think that the nature of the game, the old school nature of the game, is part of the reason for it. I am confident, and maybe I'll be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is not how this is going to work. I am confident that I'm not going to buy just a flaming hunk of garbage that gets fixed in a patch 3 weeks later, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What,
I think
have you done
awesome.
that with a game recently? Is there a recent game that comes to mind that you bought that was not good, and then we talked about it for maybe 8-9 weeks straight?
I imagine the fallout from that decision would be terrible. I can't remember one.
Also foreshadowing a topic later.
Yes. We've been doing a lot of foreshadowing.
But I mean, I think to your point about the couch co-op thing not being as popular, just to kind of bring this back into maybe a broader conversation, like I do think that we are reaching a point where couch co-op is starting to enter more of the mainstream conversation again, like especially when you think about the features that were kind of highlighted during Google Stadia's presentation, and couch co-op seemed to be a really big thing of like, hey, with streaming, it allows you guys both to leverage all of the available power of the cloud without having to split it, which is a big reason that we saw a lot of games moving away from couch co-op this generation. Is just because developers weren't wanting to dedicate split resources to allowing two players to play on the same screen. And so I think we're about to move into a world in which Larry is very, very happy with and also Halo Infinite is confirmed to have split screen as well. So, and that was kind of the point where the conversation about what happened to couch co-op started this generation when Halo 5 released and there was no couch co-op.
That was devastating for me.
And Nintendo has reinvested in it too. I mean, it's a lot of its big first party games are by many people's estimations couch co-op experiences or couch multiplayer experiences. Even if people don't play them.
I just have one last thought on this game and how it's going to do. I think the last thing that'll really give this game a big push is it's kind of a dry season for the Switch. So this being a Switch exclusive, I think that it's as far as Nintendo goes, this is a great time to release this game.
Yeah. Even though the dry season is not going to last very long for a particular reason that I believe Cody is going to talk to us about now.
Segways. We need like an emote for segways.
It's just the three of us. It's me with Cody, giving Cody a piggyback, who's giving Larry a piggyback, riding on a Segway.
I love it.
I don't think the emotes are big enough for all that detail, but we'll workshop it.
A gif of us on a Segway train, just like one after the other, holding onto each other's shoulders. But yes, I thought our topic, or my topic, I guess, transitions quite nicely from this conversation because it is about the recently unveiled but long kind of hypothesized about and known about Nintendo Switch Lite, which is a smaller handheld only and much, I guess, $100 cheaper model of the Nintendo Switch, which is going to be launching in September. Just a few quick facts about it in terms of its comparison to the regular Nintendo Switch model. It comes in 3 colors by default: the gray that we know, a turquoise bluish, and then a baby piss yellow. Because of its handheld only mode, there are no detachable JoyCons. You can sync up your controllers wirelessly, and you would have to have a charging dock for your JoyCons if you do buy this model on its own. And the battery life is longer, which is, I think, for a lot of people, probably a good thing.
Like half an hour.
Yeah. I mean, it's not significant, but for people who want that last half hour,
yeah,
they got you.
When they're like, man, I've only got 5 minutes left in this Arena of Valor game.
Exactly. So I think this has kind of been the big news, I guess the biggest news in the last 3 days. And I think for a lot of people it's intriguing. We've known that they're going in this direction for a while, but it's nice to get confirmation of it. It's also nice to know that there's going to be a Pokemon version of this, and it does launch the same day, I believe, as Link's Awakening. Or is it Fire Emblem? One of the two. So there's a good chance there'll be a bundle, I assume, at launch. But for you guys, is this something we all have Switches, correct?
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is specifically targeting us, but I am interested. Does this tickle your fancy? Who do you think this is for?
I saw this and immediately thought, and hopefully he's not watching now because this isn't a promise. This is something I would buy my nephew for Christmas. Like, that was my first thought. But my second thought was, if I didn't have a Switch right now, I would definitely be interested in something like this. The only time I ever really play multiplayer Switch anymore, my friends are coming over. They all bring their own Switches as well. We're all playing together. I don't really play on my television on my Switch all that often, and so the dockability doesn't matter all that much to me. So for me, this is just a handheld. I can play all of these awesome Switch exclusives and a lot of really cool third-party games, both AAA games made by Bethesda or indie titles that would be fun to play on the go as well. Like, this would appeal to me if I did not already own a Switch, or if I'm trying to buy this for this really is a good thing for kids who parents don't want taking up their televisions.
Yeah, I'm in the. This will be a big shock given the topic we just discussed, but for me, the Switch is my couch co-op console, and so just having the only option it doesn't appeal to me at all. I want to be able to switch back and forth.
Do you think this is kind of the model that'll sort of be the entry level for a lot of people? Because it's only $200, not $199.99 for a console that, like you said, Luke, it's only a mobile console, so it's a little bit like kind of what Nintendo has done before with the DS and the 2DS, but it plays pretty high quality, high caliber games. It seems like the perfect entry level for a lot of people.
Yeah, from the consumer side of it, I definitely agree. I think it's a perfect item to buy your kid, especially when like maybe you already own a Switch and you don't want them grossing up your JoyCons or whatever. I think about like even for you, Larry. You've got a daughter who's almost 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's probably starting to get to that age where or getting close to the age in the next couple of years where she may want to have something of her own that she can play games on. And this is that perfect thing where $200 for a console that can play all this stuff is a steal. And so from the consumer side of it, I definitely see this is going to be either baby's first console or it's going to be adult's second Switch. I've got this one that I keep at home, or that, and then I'll pull this one out when I'm traveling if I want to leave my Switch home for my wife to play on or something like that. I think this has a lot of applications where it's not the first option that an adult is going to go to, because the reason they were drawn to the Switch originally was because of its versatility.
My question on that though is, where is Nintendo at on cloud saving? It was kind of a mess there for a while. Is it better?
There is cloud saving with Nintendo Online now.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is it still a thing of if it lapses though, it's gone forever?
Oh yeah, probably. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they've changed that.
Yeah. So I agree with you. Like, this makes sense to be a second console, but only if you're paying for the cloud store. Well, for Nintendo Online, and they really need to work the little kink out in that, because I'd be furious if like just something went wrong with my bank card 1 month or something and my subscription lapsed. Like, man, that would be like get rid of the console level anger for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be for a lot of people. The point I kind of want to delve into most though, and I guess the thing that I'm most interested in is something that you brought up before, Larry. It is that the Switch was kind of marketed and kind of pegged as this console that was about transition from television to handheld, but more than that, that it could be a home for kind of local multiplayer games. Like all of the advertisements we saw for this were people on a couch huddled around looking at a TV, transition to one person's console, everybody huddled around that one console. Obviously that is not the way that most people play the Switch. I think, to your point, Luke, I think a lot of people are now, lets everybody just bring our Switch over to this one person's house and play online because of Nintendo Online. But I also do think there's a lot of people, myself included, obviously Larry, a lot of my friends who do love the experience of coming to one person's house, playing Smash Bros on a TV, having a tournament, the whole 9 yards. So I do sort of wonder whether this is how this meshes with Nintendo's kind of what they've pegged themselves as with the Switch, and the direction of a lot of their kind of stable of first party games like Smash Bros, Mario Kart, all of which are online. Obviously you can play online, and all of which you can play with each other online, and a lot of people do, but have a deep history of being local party games, and which they've continued that tradition moving into this generation. How do you think this sort of meshes with that if it's just a handheld only console? Sunsetting
perfectly. And I'm not even kidding. I think this is a brilliant move from Nintendo. Look, they are sunsetting the 3DS. There were no new games at E3 that were announced for the 3DS. Doug Bowser said there were no new games in development for the 3DS right now. They're obviously letting that ride off into the sunset. Yeah. And so their choice internally was either, all right, we need to spin up another handheld console and then spin up the games that we're going to have to push for that handheld console, broker new third-party partnerships with people to develop games for that console, or we can just allow the Switch, half of the Switch's identity, or probably more realistically, 75 to 80% of the current Switch's identity, manifest itself in a more traditional handheld, handheld way and just allow the games we have and the partnerships we have to cross pollinate. And then it's a brilliant sell, for your point, Cody, when somebody comes into a GameStop or into a Best Buy or into a Walmart and they're talking to somebody in the electronics department and they're saying, hey, I'm looking at buying a Switch. My kid is constantly talking about wanting a Nintendo. Oh, you have one kid? Well, let me show you this Nintendo Switch Lite. It's awesome. Hey, my kids are wanting a new console. Oh, well, let me recommend the Nintendo Switch, the regular one, because it automatically comes with 2 controllers that you can snap off. It goes up onto the television. Multiple people can play. And so I think each one kind of naturally sells itself based on the application that it's going to be used within. And there's enough amazing one player games, single player games to play on the Switch that the Lite can stand on its own. And with their new online infrastructure as well, as flawed and featureless as it is going to allow people to still be able to experience playing games with other people. It's just going to require additional consoles. And also, I'm not sold on this completely not working on televisions. It may not work in the dock, but there's a lot of third-party dongles that are used on the Switch. And if it's, just using a USB-C connection, I don't see why those dongles wouldn't be able to work also on the Lite. Then you can just connect wireless controllers to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. As it stands,
He cut out again. Something's going on, I think, with Larry's internet.
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you now, but it's like every other time it gets around to you, it lags out.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Anyway, I see all that, but as it stands, I don't see it as like meshing with their like get together and play together vision that they've cast. But it does fit within Nintendo's vision, right? Because Nintendo has dominated the mobile game, like not mobile gaming, but gaming on the go
Right.
space.
Handheld gaming.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Basically reiterating what Luke said in different words, but I think that the versatility of the Switch really put Nintendo in this weird spot where you can't release another DS, you can't release another Game Boy, whatever. Like so this just makes sense. And as far as it just looks to me like this is the new quote unquote DS. This is the new handheld gaming system, and it just makes sense to call it a Switch. And for those reasons, you don't have to broken. It's just powerful, and the lines have just been blurred so much for them that this accomplishes Nintendo continuing to dominate that space.
Mm-hmm. The conversation around this today has been just odd. Like online, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not interested in this at all if it doesn't have detachable Joy-Cons. And I'm like, are you stupid? Like, it's not replacing the Switch. It's not like they're halting production of the Switch and only making Switch Lites from now on. These things are going to exist in tandem, side by side with one another. And if there are features missing from Switch Lite that you would like to have, you have the option to have them in another SKU that supports all of the same games, which the Lite doesn't support a couple different games for various reasons. But
I think it's filling a gap in what they have. Like, I think you're totally right. I'm sort of divided on this because I do like the idea of a console that sort of pushes the local experience, but I think they can exist side by side in perfect synergy, and I think they will. I think this unifies Nintendo in a way that it hasn't been in so long because of its various bizarre experimentations with consoles, both handheld and on the TV. I think it's unifying it all under the Switch brand. I think it's gonna, like I said before, it's gonna be a perfect entry level. I do think that it's good for both kids and for the people that I know in the industry who travel so much but want to have a game experience on the go. But they're not going to sink money into a console that's dead at this point, like a 2DS or a 3DS, which does have a great stable of games. I think it's good for filling a gap in its console kind of roster and its capability roster that I think is probably needed in some way. I just think it's creating perfect synergy for them.
Do you think that it does create some difficulty in the future, though, if they ever decide that they want to split these two ideas again? When they have let's say they buckle down and say, we want to create something that's as powerful from a hardware perspective as current gen, PlayStation 5 or Xbox, whatever it's going to be next. Like, not saying it's going to happen within that short of a time, but there may come a time where Nintendo's really interested in power, and it just doesn't make sense to have it in handheld. With them merging these two concepts and training their people that, like, hey, anything that you can play on your home console on the Switch, you'll be able to play on the go as well. Does it make it more difficult in the future if they're going to have to go like, hey, our handheld is a little less powerful and it's not going to be able to play everything that we're developing for whatever our home console is in the future?
I think Larry is right. The Switch did sort of back them into a corner in terms of what they can do, because the inherent idea of it is so appealing to so many people, and it's sort of retrained us to think about a Nintendo console and a console in general. To be honest, I don't know if Nintendo is ever going to be interested in power. Historically, I don't think that's what it's been about. And looking forward, I cannot see a point at which that is what it's thinking about, because it occupies such a unique space in the industry and the market. It's to even attempt to put all its resources or much of its resources behind the idea of pushing the power of the hardware would put it in direct competition with Sony and Microsoft, which I don't think is a place it wants to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
I do.
This is a hypothetical.
Yeah, definitely.
But I it's an interesting hypothetical, because I think Nintendo with the Switch has created something that I think it will be attempting to replicate for years to come. And for consoles to come.
You think that, but then you look at all of the other things that they've done in the past, and it's like, this was wildly successful as well, and then they just moved on, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's such a landmark console that I do sort of think they've been backed into a corner, unless they just hate that idea so much that they go in the complete opposite direction and do end up making the Nintendo equivalent of an Xbox. Mm-hmm. What that looks like, I have no idea. They'll probably just call it the N box.
It's going to be one of those, it's going to have one of those like terrifyingly hyper realistic Marios in it.
Yeah. I wonder if the advent of game streaming like just renders the problem moot. Like by the time they've got to make that decision, it's where they can just the games that the handheld version can't handle. So I don't know.
That's a fantastic point. I shared an article in our Discord, which you can join by typing !Discord or clicking the link in the show description. Posted a link to where somebody from the Nintendo's executive office said they were looking into 5G technology. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes the Nintendo Lite really, really interesting. So we look back at the Vita, right? And we say there was a lot that made the Vita fail, right? First, like proprietary memory cards that were outrageously priced. They were originally being packaged with these 3G deals that were just like insanely priced as well. But in a lot of ways, what they were attempting to do with the Vita was ahead of its time, and understanding that we're more and more on the go. We're being surrounded by these cell towers that have almost comparable speeds to what we can manage, in a lot of people's homes, and so I think if the Switch were to come out and say, we have a Switch Lite that has a 5G card built into it, or even a 4G card built into it, there would be people who would be interested in it. Cody, all those people that that travel so much for work or whatever, how interested would they be to be able to connect to their online games on the go? Like, I think there is room for it to grow and expand in terms of its like how innovative it is. And Larry, your point about streaming goes hand in hand with that idea. Like, if I can connect to a 5G network that's exponentially faster than 4G, Are you going to be able to take advantage of streaming platforms on the go with a Nintendo Switch Lite or whatever is comparable to that in the generations to come?
And I'd get rid of my smartphone if I had a Switch that could do that, as long as they put a Twitter app on it.
Boom, baby. Don't even need to make phone calls because I can't even voice chat on the damn thing.
Look, nobody answers the phone anymore anyway, call except for you. So
That's true. That's true.
It's just all the good, none of the bad. No communication whatsoever.
mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on the Nintendo Switch we wanted to hit on?
I did want to hit on the streaming thing, but we sort of kind of touched on that. I think that's a way that Nintendo can continue to find a place for the Switch and find an expanded place for the Switch as well.
They're going to have to figure out online shit first.
They will. They're going to have to figure out a lot of shit first.
Yeah, definitely.
We all do agree that Baby Piss Yellow was not the way to go, right?
Yes.
From a personal aesthetic standpoint, I do not think so. I think from a marketing standpoint and it being held up, my first thought was kids when it got shown. And if that's really the market that they think that this is going to make inroads in, then maybe that was a brilliant color choice. But from just a pure do I like it? No, I'd have much rather seen them showcase the blue. Turquoise is so hot now.
It is. It's really cool looking.
And I mean, I would probably still just get the gray, but the blue one's cool.
I'm the products.
You're what?
Purple Game Boy Color. I miss the purple Nintendo product. I had a purple Game Boy Color, a purple GameCube. Bring back purple.
Where's the translucent stuff? That's what we need.
Right?
Oh god.
If they really want to lean into nostalgia, give us the translucent. I had the translucent orange N64. That thing was balling. All right. Let's move on, guys.
All right.
I want to talk about this interview that Sean Murray gave, the maker of No Man's Sky. He did this interview during the Develop conference in Brighton, UK, where he was talking about the reception of No Man's Sky, talking about other games that had what they called polarized releases, when in reality it was just this game was shit when it came to market, and about what advice Sean Murray would give to other studios who are making these things. And I think that we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation around this. So let me just read some of these quotes. He said, Murray said, quote, "We went about 2 years without talking to the press at all. And we went about 3 months without saying anything to the community either. That was really hard. I sat down so many times and wrote the perfect blog post that was going to explain everything about the game's development and the roadmap going ahead. But I could see that it didn't hold credibility with regards to where we were at," end quote. So just to refresh everybody, No Man's Sky had gone on this massive marketing circuit behind it, with being backed by dollars from Sony. It was really acting as a stopgap between big Sony either first party or second party exclusive games that were going to be coming to their platforms. And so Sony spent a lot of time hyping it up, and Sean Murray gave a lot of interviews that were more based around things that he wanted to be in the game and less about things that actually ended up making it into the game. So when it released, there was this mass communication ahead of time and a lot of excitement coming out of Hello Games game releases, to a lot of fan anger and backlash because of those missing features. And Hello Games and Sean Murray and the No Man's Sky team and Sony as well pretty much went totally silent on the product for some time. And they've since released a lot of updates, really put their nose to the grindstone, built it back up. But he goes on to say this. He was asked about games like Fallout 76, Sea of Thieves, Anthem, these games that kind of were less than stellar upon release, and what those game makers should have done. And he said, quote, "There have been a number of games that have since come out, had a polarizing launch, and that explosive mix of loads of people playing it, but also problems. And I can see EA, Microsoft, or Bethesda try to placate players by talking to them, but for right or wrong, it just doesn't really work. You see this all the time when a big publisher will talk to the community and try to solve the problem and then get embroiled, taking up more and more of its headspace," end quote. So essentially what Sean Murray is advocating, and correct me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm misreading this, is he's essentially saying, guys, if you release a game that's bad, shut up and go hide away, work on it, and make it better, and don't pop your head up until it's in a place where it is better.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty accurate.
That's how I read it.
All right. I don't want to go on a huge rant here, but I do want to take a little bit of time to remind both the three of us, all of our listeners, and Sean Murray as well, about exactly what happened in those 3 months that he decided not to speak to his community, right? Because I think that we're looking back on this with some rose-colored glasses and some 2020 hindsight, and we're maybe romanticizing some of the decisions that were made that didn't necessarily pan out at the time in a way that Sean Murray would have hoped. So, first thing, game comes out that August, right? Tons of backlash. Steam starts issuing refunds regardless of how much time you've put into the game. There were people who had put 70 hours into the game, started demanding refunds either based on performance issues, missing features, or just because Sean Murray hadn't and Hello Games hadn't really responded to any of the criticism. So that was just a couple weeks later, and Steam has a pretty strict refund policy, right? It's normally you play more than an hour, you can't get a refund, but anything less than that, you can. And then there were other fans who were kind of putting the screws to Sony and saying, hey, you don't have a refund policy for your games. This game does not live up to any of the promises that you've made. And so how are you going to rectify this with us? To the point where Sony started issuing refunds for No Man's Sky as well, based on the backlash. And they tried to cover it by saying, we've always had a policy where each account gets one refund, but it was like, that's never been stated to us before. Then in September 2016, officials in the UK stated that No Man's Sky was actually, and Hello Games were actually under investigation for possible false advertising. And then in October 2016, the No Man's Sky subreddit shut down temporarily because one of the mods called it, quote, a hate-filled waste hole, end quote. And that is just a brief, 30,000 foot view of the fallout from the release of No Man's Sky. And I think that we've kind of lost sight of what those few months where Sean Murray was hidden away at his studio were like. But again, I want to get you guys' thoughts on what he said. Is this a better approach than, hey, let's go and continue to make promises that we're not necessarily sure we can keep?
I think
He thinks
for sure.
What'd you say?
Huh?
You keep cutting in and out.
I'm so sorry, man. I think it's absolutely not a better approach. I remember talking about this game over the course of those few months, and all we talked about was like how irresponsible it was to drop a game where you'd broken so many promises or failed to live up to the advertisement, and then to say nothing. How disrespectful it was. It burned me on this studio. That decision is the reason that I never bought the game. Heard great things about where it's at now. And now I would maybe consider it, but we're past the window where I'd be interested. I might have been interested when I started hearing those things initially if I didn't have the bad taste of, oh yeah, that's screwed up, and then just didn't say anything about. So yeah, you gotta have balance. Don't make more promises you can't keep, but there's got to be some communication of, hey, we're doing something, because there for a while we were all like, okay, this guy just took everybody's money and disappeared. And that is not a good look.
I wanted to find when these 3 months are.
These 3 months were from the release of the game, August 9th, 2016. And then I think that the first statement came out to fans, and not necessarily to the press, in early November.
Because there's also a large gap where they refuse to talk to press.
Yeah, 2 years.
And I think that might be a more I think there might be more merit to that strategy.
Like not going on the PR circuit and just talking directly to fans.
maybe. I think I think in the abstract there's merit to what he's saying. Like just put your nose to the grindstone, get down. I don't know if it kind of bears out in practice. Because I think for those 3 months and for the whatever amount of time you don't communicate with your fan base, you are going to take a significant beating in terms of public image, which is what happened. I do want to say, side note, fuck anyone who played the game for 70 hours and then requested a refund. They can fuck right off.
Yeah.
But I think, and we'll talk about this, I don't know if it works as well if your team is massive and your company is massive.
And you have people who that's their job.
Yeah, if you have people whose job is to say stuff, to tell them not to say stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also think in at least one of the cases we will talk about, the problem was not talking about the game. The problem was everything else that you did around the game that you shouldn't have done in the first place. So I don't know how much this bears out, like in practice, case by case. I think there's like kind of a disconnect between what he's saying and kind of the effect that his strategy had in the actual world that we live in.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very weird, hey, this strategy worked out great for me, and we're like, bro, we saw that train wreck. You know that, right? Like you can't cast this as something that was good.
Yes.
Yes, you can't.
Yeah, it's like, this is an extreme example. It's like someone was overweight, right? Went on like a 3-month cocaine bender and lost 40 pounds, right? They came back clean, they were good, and they were like, guys, it works. It works. This totally self-destructive way of going about it, the end justifies the means. It's a completely valid approach because, hey, we're in a good spot now. We've lost all this weight, and it's just like, that's not... You didn't do it because you put your head down. Like, you lost faith. A lot of people lost faith in you irreparably because of what you did, myself included. Like, Hello Games, I have a hard time respecting them. I respect that they stuck with a game that failed when they could have just as easily disbanded and gone and worked on other things. I respect that, but I have no respect for them as a business that I should go and give my money to them because I did that once and they went and hid away with it, it seemed. And that's exactly what it felt like when it happened. You know, even as much as a blog post that would have said, hey guys, we are here, we are listening to your feedback, we're not going to be releasing statement after statement about what individual things that we're working on, but we want to promise you that there's coming a time where we're going to try to deal with as much of this as we can. And like, even something as small as that would have went a long ass way for me. But the fact that they took the money and just went and hid with it, I don't want any company, I don't care if you're 3 people or 3,000 people, that is not good business. Like, if somebody has an issue with what you're doing, or if as much of a percentage of your player base has that much of a problem, you need to at least have the decency to step out and say it. And I don't think it was a strategy for them. I think they were terrified of what they had built and the ball that was rolling downhill at them, and they didn't want to step outside of their house long enough to get run over by it. It just so happened to work out, but not because of it.
And I would contend that had they had a communication, it would have worked out even better. It worked out, but you missed out by like everyone who requested a refund, they didn't go buy that game again. They didn't. And then you had people like me who observed it and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not dealing with that company.
Yeah, I think a message that would have just said something along the lines of, hey guys, we hear you. We're going to go away for quite a while to really work on this game. Don't mention any specifics because that's what got you in trouble in the first place. but just mention that you're going to put your nose to the grindstone and really work on this game, no matter what happens. I think just something as good as an attempt at good faith would work, and let people know that you are actually doing something and not just sitting on a pile of money in your office, which I think is what a lot of people assumed was going on. I also don't like none of this is to discredit the sheer amount of work that they have put into that game, because I think it's actually very impressive. And I was one of the people who returned to the game when they did that significant update to see what was happening, and was really impressed by what I saw. And it was much more in line with what they had pitched. It wasn't 100% what they had promised us, but it was much more in line with that. And I don't know, I think there was a way to communicate that wasn't promising anything concrete, but also wasn't just shutting people out. There's a middle ground there, and I don't think they attempted to do that. Again, like you said, Luke, because they were probably terrified.
Well, and Sony's partly to blame for this too. Like, where was Sony in any of this?
100%.
You know, they created the monster.
Yes.
I just wanted to quote a police officer I once observed dealing with a guy who was clearly lying. So this is your opportunity to create your narrative before I create one for you.
Jesus.
That's the purpose of communication. If you don't come out and tell us what's going on, we're gonna, for better or for worse, the general public is going to craft the narrative.
Yep, that's what PR is for.
Yeah, and I think that I also think like this comparison between No Man's Sky and these other games, Fallout 76, Anthem, Sea of Thieves, like I think is a little. Honestly, I think it's a bit of a stretch to compare them. Like, yes, they released to underwhelming receptions, and in fact, some of them overtly negative receptions. But I think that's where. What's that?
You cut out on my screen for a minute, but it's probably on my end.
Oh, okay. But I think that's really where the similarities end. You know, like I think for Fallout, it was more of a PR nightmare, but behind things outside of the game. Yes, there were things broken within the game, but am I cutting out for you, Cody?
A little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. Sorry about that, guys.
I can understand what you're saying.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, like for Fallout, it was around like the
Literally
collector's
everything
edition and all this other stuff that was like around it. With Anthem, I don't think anyone really had a ton of confidence in what Anthem was going to be when it was coming out, because EA let off the gas pedal going into it and then just kind of coasted into its release. And then with Sea of Thieves,
BioWare didn't know what game it was.
Exactly. And then Sea of Thieves was really just a matter of content. And that was something that everybody kind of felt like they knew going in. It was like, this looks cool and like it could be fun, but really, what are you doing when you're in this world? Like, nobody really knew that until they got their hands on it. And so, like, I think the similarities really end at the fact that these released to underwhelming receptions. No Man's Sky was literally a textbook case of false advertising of what something was going to be. And a lot of things that were promised to be in that game were not in that game. And so I don't know how much room Sean Murray has to like speak into those situations and to say, do this or do that, especially when he doesn't know the context of working in a giant corporation. And I think he'd feel a lot different about that if Sony had stepped in and said, hey, we have people who are paid to talk on your behalf. Let's let some of them say a couple things for you about what you're doing here. But this quote also makes me wonder if Sony offered that and they were like, no, we don't want to step in front of this anymore.
Well, I think Sony did do a little of that, and that's also what got Hello Games in hot water. Sony was upselling the hell out of this game too.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about post-release.
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't know if people would have reacted well to their message being filtered through a Sony PR person, though.
But I mean, I would say if I'm Sony, does it make any sense for me to not send a PR person to Hello Games and say like, hey, let us at least consult you on what to say and what to do? Like, I have to imagine that conversation happen. I'd love to watch a no clip or document, like read a Jason Schreier deep dive into the development of this game or something. Like, Because I think that there are things that happen behind the scenes that we just aren't privy to. I know there are things behind the scenes, but Sony's just complete like washing of the hands after that game released is just insane to me.
The other thing that bothers me about this story, and it C.S. Lewis said that you can tell how prideful you are based on how angry you get when other people are prideful. So it may be my own personal issue. But this whole thing just seems a little pretentious to me. Like, I don't know that Hello Games hit a level of success where this guy needs to be like, "Hey, Bethesda, just want to give you a little pro tip that I figured out." And you get what I'm saying? Like, it feels like a certain podcaster that I don't want to name on Twitter being like, "I never wanted to be a podcasting expert, but here we are."
Yeah, you know who needs to be giving advice? The team behind Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? Like, those are the guys who really know how to handle it. And that was communication all along the way. And think about the main criticism behind Destiny when you get past, like, you can't go to that mountain over there. The main criticism is they go just through these spells of, like, not wanting to talk to anybody. Not giving any indication about what's happening with this game. Like, that's the main criticism people have. We live in a time where you can tweet and immediately tell your fans something. And it's an expectation that I think is reasonable to have as somebody who spends their hard-earned money on games. So
For sure. Transparency is, I think, a lot of people's biggest pet peeve when it comes to a lot of developers. And that it was a concerted effort on Bungie's part to correct that moving into Destiny 2. Whether or not they did is kind of up to everybody else to kind of pick apart. But they did certainly make a concerted effort when it came to transparency. And I think like having a tool like that at your dispense is, I think, challenging to reckon with for a lot of people. But it can also be extremely powerful if used well. And if you have people like Sony who are publishing your game, who are well versed in this kind of communication, I think it behooves you to learn a little bit from them as much as you can and kind of take that stuff into account when you're communicating with your fan base.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. Well, let's move on to everybody's favorite game that we play at the end of this show. You guys have anything else to say about No Man's Sky? Okay.
No.
All right, cool. Two Truths and a Gaming Lie, Gaming Edition, the game, the musical. So if you guys don't know how this works, I have a game, very obscure, probably nobody's ever heard of it, and I've got two truthful statements and one lie that I have made up about this game, and our panel of expert and Larry have to suss out which one is the lie. Let's go to the scoreboard, ladies and gentlemen. With 8 points in the lead, yours truly, your host, Luke Croft. How do I get points? Well, if neither of these two bozos can figure out which one the lie is, that means that I've done a good job, and I reward myself a point. Quickly catching up to me, I believe, with 5 unanswered points. Codsworth, you have 6 points, but 5 of them have been unanswered.
I believe that's true. Yes.
Yes. Codsworth Coddington with a total of 6, and then we just need to do a quick number crunch over here for Larry. Carry the 2.
It's been a while since we've been through this.
And then, what's the number that looks like a donut with like the hole in the middle? It's like you have a.
I believe that's a 0.
Yeah, that's it. 0 points for Larry.
Can you crunch the numbers again?
Hold on, let me. Beep boop pop beep boop boop beep. Yeah, it's like it's a dot, but then it's like
it's actually gone down.
It's a -0. All right, guys. So the game this week, I figured I'd throw Larry a bone. All right. Not really. You know me better than that, Larry. But you know this game. It's a little game called Titanfall. The first one. All right?
Okay. All right.
This was the first-person shooter that Microsoft backed up a truckload of money and said, "Can you please save our console?" All right, you guys ready for this? I've got 2 truths and a gaming lie for you. Number 1. Titanfall was EA's first-person shooter to leverage the Frostbite engine. Number 2. Abby Hepp Respawn's community manager voiced and provided motion capture for the character Sarah Briggs. Number 3, EA bartered exclusivity of Titanfall for Microsoft, allowing them to acquire the rights to Mass Effect so the former could release the trilogy bundle for the PlayStation platform.
Can you repeat that last one? It cut out for me.
Yep. EA bartered exclusivity of Titanfall for Microsoft, allowing them... I'm sorry, let me reread this. EA bartered exclusivity of Titanfall for Microsoft, allowing them to acquire the rights to Mass Effect for the former, so the former could release the trilogy bundle for the PlayStation platform.
Okay.
All right. So we have Frostbite, community manager, bartering the rights. We're going to start with Larry. Larry, which one do you think is the lie?
I believe the third one is the lie.
All right.
I
Coddington.
will not give you my thought process this week.
All right. Coddington, what do you think?
I think it's the first one.
All right.
Doesn't look like
And
Frostbite, but-
Cody gets the point. It was not Frostbite.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Frostbite.
Both Titanfalls were actually developed on Valve's Source Engine, which is the game that most Valve games have been developed on. So,
including Half-Life 3.
You should have known that I didn't make up the third one because I copy and pasted it. It's worded oddly. So, according to some unnamed sources, what happened was EA was willing to come to the table with Microsoft for Titanfall because Microsoft published the first Mass Effect and had the publishing rights to it. The whole reason EA was even willing to have the conversation about making Titanfall exclusive is because Microsoft gave them the publishing rights to Mass Effect, allowing them to put it out on PlayStation. So,
And Microsoft should have held on to Mass Effect.
yeah. Hindsight 2020, baby.
Yeah.
They got that one Tomb Raider game for a year. All right, guys.
But would there even be an Xbox if they hadn't got Titanfall?
That's
It's very true.
That's very, very true. So Cody has brought it to within a single point. We're playing first to 10 on this game, and then we'll figure
I'm
out
coming for you.
we'll figure
Now
out
I'm
a new
gonna
game.
start playing for real.
Now I'm gonna play it with two hands. Larry, this game doesn't require any.
He's been playing with both hands tied behind his back.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Let's get out of here. Larry, who are you? Where can people find you? What are you going to be tweeting about this week?
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at Lair Hunts Zombies, and it's just a pure stream of rage. So I wouldn't advise following me till maybe next week.
All right. Codmeyer.
Ooh. Codmeyer Coddington.
Yes.
My name is Cody. You can find me on Twitter at ProElectioneer. I feel bad because I feel like the last few weeks I haven't been... Whenever you ask me this question, I say something that's not gaming related, but I'm going to continue that trend this week. I'm going to finish up season 3 of Stranger Things, and then I really want to see how this season shakes out because I think there are some really interesting connections between the Upside Down and capitalism, and so I might start tweeting about that.
All right. My name is Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at Hoagie_OW. I'm just going to be tweeting out random questions about Dota because I'm watching and I really have no idea what's going on in this game. Like, what is a rune? And why are people fighting over them? The world
These
may
are the
never
questions
know.
we need to be answered.
There's probably a YouTube video I could easily watch, but I'm not going to do that. Guys, this has been PvA Radio. We get together each and every week, and each of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories of the week, or we talk about something that happened 10 years ago. And then we have an in-depth discussion about it. Consider it your collaborative audio feature article, or CAFA, if you will. And Larry, what would we like people to do with that?
You're going to want to spam the emote in the chat and then you're going to want to spam the emote in the form of graffiti all over your city.
Oh, yes. Yes. If you can't catch us live over here every week on twitch.tv/PvA Radio on Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m., you can watch us on youtube.com/PvA Radio or listen to us on podcast services everywhere. Wherever you're listening to us, guys, we appreciate you. Leave us a comment, review, rating, thumbs up, subscribe, whatever it is that, floats your boat. We would greatly appreciate it. But until next week, guys, we love you. Goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?